Hey class, we are starting our video series for week 11 for our Revit project. We've gone ahead and opened our Revit model. It's the same model that we've been using for each of the steps in this project. If I go to a 3D view, you can see where we are at this point. This week we're going to start out by creating a site. So I'm going to go to my site plan here in my project browser. And we are going to create that site using a topo surface. To do that, we're going to create a series of points at specific elevations. Our first series of points is actually up against the building. However, right now I can't see that edge of the building because the roofs in this view in the site plan are obscuring those points. So what I want to do first, before I can go into the topo surface command, is select my two roofs. I'm holding Control to select the second roof and clicking. Coming down here to my view control bar and using my temporary hide or isolate button, the little sunglass icon. If I click on that, hit hide element, I've now temporarily hidden those roofs so that I can see the edges of my building. That's indicated by the cyan box around my drawing area. Now that I can see the edges of the walls of my building, I can come up here to the topo surface button. And as I mentioned, it creates a topo surface. This is a three-dimensional surface which is based upon a series of points in elevations. So we are going to look at our draw options. We're going to be using place point. We come to our options bar, and our elevation for our points around the building itself, basically where the grade meets the building, is going to be negative 1 foot 1 inch. And I'm going to place those points at each corner of my building. And once I place 3 points, you'll notice that it connects a line between these 3 points, because that's the bare minimum needed for a topo surface, is 3 points. I'm going to continue placing these points at the corners of my building. I'm going to go underneath of the porch, because the grade is going to go right up to the building below the porch at this elevation. So I've placed a point at each of these corners. Now what I want to do is come out 10 feet from my building and go down another 6 inches. That is the minimum slope away from the building according to the code to get water away from your building. Before I do that though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the finish surface button up here, and I'm going to create a series of temporary lines that will be 10 feet away from my building. Now I'm going to do that from the porch as well. So I'm going to go to the annotate ribbon, the detail line button, and the line style doesn't really matter. I'm going to delete these lines after I'm done using them. I'm going to use an offset of 10 feet, and I'm just going to place a line here, hit escape, place a line here. I just want to make sure I'm 10 feet away from the furthest edges of my building, from the porch and then from this side. Now notice if I go up to down, it's placing the line inside of the house, so I have to click down here and go up. So again, clockwise around the building. Now I can use my trim tool, which is on this ribbon here, the modify ribbon, or you can just type TR as I did, and you can click these lines to connect them. And what I'm trying to do here is just get these 4 corners, because I want to place a point at those 4 corners, which is 6 inches below the grade at the edge of my house. So now what I want to do is edit this topo surface. So to do that, I have to select it, and you can select it by hovering over any one of these edges that you see appearing below the building, or outside of the building, I should say. So I'm going to select that topo surface, come up to my context sensitive ribbon, click Edit Surface, and now I'm going to create more points. So I'm going to click the Place Point button, and I want to make my elevation 6 inches below this elevation. So that's -1 foot 7 inches. And I'm simply going to place 4 points at the corners of that box I created earlier. Finally, what I want to do is I want to create 4 more points that are outside of these elevation markers. And those I'm going to simply go down to -2 feet. And I'm just going to eyeball these. They don't really matter too much. We just need to make sure that as we place these buttons, that the extent of our topo surface is outside of these elevation markers. Now that I've done that, I can hit the green checkmark button to finish my surface. And there's my topo surface. These lines are still here, my temporary detail lines. So I'm going to delete those. Select them and press the delete button. Now, if I go to a 3D view, I see a surface which represents my topography or my grade, and that is above my basement plan, so it's hiding that when my camera's above that view. And that's what we want. Now what I'm going to do is set up a 3D camera view that we are going to use for our cover sheet. So I'm going to go to my first floor plan and place a new camera view. So far we've used the default 3D views to set up an orthographic view. This time I'm going to use an actual camera view, and to do that we go to the View ribbon, the 3D view button. We want to pick the down arrow. We click Camera, and the way that this works is that we click the position of the camera on our first click, and then our second click is where the camera is looking. The options bar shows that this is going to be a perspective, and it's going to be 5'6" above the first floor. 5'6" is the default, or I should say the typical eye height for a person. That's a 6 foot tall person. Their eyes are about 6 inches below their head. So this is at eye level, is essentially what that's saying. So we're just going to click out on this side, on the southeast side of the house. Click once, pull my mouse, and make sure that I'm clicking on the other side of the house so that my view cone encapsulates the whole house. So my second view click is there. It automatically takes you to the 3D view. You can see here in the project browser, I now have a new 3D view 1. I can also crop this view a bit closer so that it can appear larger on my sheet. And there's my 3D view. I am going to leave that view set to the hidden line default visual style. At this point, I'm ready to create my cover sheet. So I'm going to go to Sheets, right click on Sheets, say New Sheet. I'm going to use my ARC 110 11x17 title block family. Click OK. That's just going to start up where we left off, which is on the roof plan. If we right click that sheet in the project browser and hit rename, we can rename this A 0.0, and we're going to call it all caps cover sheet. And now we can, just like any other sheet, we can simply drag this 3D view onto this sheet. We would like this to be larger. However, we can't do that with a scale because this is a camera view. So what we need to do is select this view, and in our context sensitive menu or ribbon, we have this size crop button. We can click that button and we can change the crop region size. But before we do that, we want to change the scale, not the field of view. This is going to actually change the size of this thing. And I'm just going to make this something like 5 inches tall and see what that looks like. Click apply. And that looks about the right height. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to move this to be inside of my title block. Now, I don't need the border, or sorry, the title. So I'm actually just going to drag that off the sheet, because for the cover sheet, this is sort of just a decorative view of the house. We have to place all 4 elevations on sheets. The elevations have already been created. They were part of our Revit template. So let's jump into our east elevation first. Actually, let me switch to a different elevation. I've already modified this one. So here's our north elevation. And you see that we see way more of this information than we need to see because our crop box is too big. To turn on our crop box, we're going to come down to our view control bar and click show crop region. And that shows this crop region. We select that region, and now we can move that crop box much closer towards the building. And you can see that it crops out this extraneous information. We're also going to change our scale to be the proper scale, which is 1/4 inch equals a foot. That'll change the size of our text. I'm going to drag this down to just above our roof level, and the bottom of the box is going to go up to just below our grade line. And because we created that site, we now have that site hatch or that soil hatch in here. Let me turn thin lines off so that we're looking at this properly. And we're going to have to do that to each of our elevations. So when we come to an elevation that we haven't done this yet on, we're going to change the scale. We're going to show the crop region, and then we're going to drag that box to be close to the house. Now mine is already showing some section markers that we need to do to get those sections. Once you have these set up, you will just create new sheets for them. Again, north, east, southwest view. Reference your final deliverables for their sheet names and sheet numbers. And then you're simply going to just drag them onto the sheets, just like every other sheet that you've created for this project. We also need to place sections on those sheets. So you can see here the sections that I have are essentially the same sections that we had in our AutoCAD file. And to create a section, I'm just going to create 2 new ones, or sorry, 1 new one. I usually use the section marker button in my quick access bar. And your first click is always where the head goes, and the second click is where the tail goes. You can move these around by just dragging them. And you can flip which direction they look by using the flip button. So get these positioned correctly. You can use the little blue dots to move the annotations, so the head and the tail. But notice that this dashed blue line does not move. The dashed blue line indicates where the section is actually being cut. This is just the indicator. So place these 2 section markers in these orientations so that it'll create these new building section views.